Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Rosh Hashanah. We are on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Bet, the first wide line of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut Refuah Shelema for Achel Simcha Bad Nahid, the Shudar Refuah Shelema for Daniel Moshe Ben Farangis v'Avraham, the Shudar Refuah Shelema. His Amud is also dedicated for Sharona Bat Sohela Chaya Simcha, that should find a proper zivug hagun be'ezrat Hashem and get married. This learning of today is also dedicated for the neshama of Kianush Pinchas ben Ovadia, that should have aliyat neshama. This month's learning of the community has been graciously dedicated by the Shea family. It should be an ultimate zchut for their mishpacha be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. So we have started again the fantastic topic of the judgment of Rosh Hashanah, and we started a discussion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Midot HaRachamim, the 13 attributes of Hashem's mercy. Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun, Hashem, Hashem, the Gemara said, Kodem She'echta Adam, Achar She'echta V'Yashuv, and once we invoke that before and after a person sins, there is a Midat HaRachamim that's invoked by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we're going to get into a discussion of when does the tefillah work? When does the tefillah not work? Is there a time that teshuva would not work anymore? If Hashem has already decided to do something, does that still work to do teshuva? Or maybe there is a point in time that now it's going to be too late. Now, before we even get to Masechet Rosh Hashanah, if you go through Shas, we already should be saying, we learned in Masechet Brachot Daf Yud that afilu cherev chadam munachat al savarav shel adam, that even if you have a sword laying down on your neck, al yityaesh min harachamim, you should not give up on asking for compassion for literally this, Rachamim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that we learn from a story that that's not just a sword, but it was really a spiritual sword. Chizkiyahu Melech Yisrael is sick, is deadly ill, and just in case he thinks this is another cold that you catch, Navi Yeshayahu comes to him and says, no, this is no regular sickness. Ki met ata velo tichyeh. Hashem has decided you're going to die from this. I'm just coming to tell you, right? Now, ba'olam hazeh, ba'olam haba, that's aside from the fact. And he tells him, you have done something that has upset Hashem enough that the decision has been made that you're dead. And what does he tell him? He tells him, Ben Amos, Yeshaya, his father was Amos. He says, Kaleh nevuatcha v'tzeh. So, okay, please finish up your nevuah, whatever you have to say to me, and go. In other words, I'm not buying any of this. Mekubalani mi bet avi abba. I have a tradition from David HaMelech himself, my great-great-grandfather, afilu cherev chadam munachat al tzavaro shel adam, etc. Which means, I'm not giving up on davening. You're telling me Hashem said I'm dead? Not listening. And sure enough, he davened, intensified davening. Vayatzef Chizkiyahu et panav el akir. And 15 years, nonetheless, it was added to his life miraculously, amazing. The sun stopped, the whole thing, the whole shebang. So that seems like it was something set in stone that should happen to the degree that you had a nevuah about it, declared by a navi, the navi of the time, and yet that was changed. Now, we're going to see lines in the Gemara that seem to indicate not like that at all. That maybe a gezardin, once it is already cut, there's no changing it afterwards. And we're going to see difference between a yachid and a tzibur. That perhaps a tzibur has a greater level of zchut than a yachid. And then we'll see that there are two different types of gezardin. Not all gezardins are created equally, which again, the unfold of the Gemara will tell, and we will at some point come back to revisit this story of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, B'ezrat Hashem, and try to put some new flesh on the structure, on the bones of this topic altogether. So without further ado, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This starts off from a comment that Rabbi Yochanan made, and then the Gemara attacks it with a bunch of questions back to back. What did Rabbi Yochanan teach? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gedolat teshuva. You know how great teshuva is? Shemekarat gezar dino shel adam. It tears apart even a gezar din. That means, even if you're late in the game, and you didn't do teshuva on time, and now there has been a gezar din, right? The heavenly court has made a decision on this individual, or on this sibur. And now you do teshuva. Gedolat teshuva. Teshuva is so great that could tear apart an already made gezar din. Shenemar, how do I know? He darshans a pasuk. He has a pasuk, Rabbi Yochanan. The pasuk says, Hashmen lev ha'amazeh ve'oznav hachbet ve'enav hasha. The heart of this nation has been fattened, indicating insensitivity, that the heart doesn't feel. Ve'oznav hachbet, their ears are heavy from hearing. Ve'enav hasha, and the eyes are clogged, are closed, are covered. Pen yir'eh be'enav, this nation has done this to themselves, lest they will see, and they will hear with their ears. Ulevavo yavin, and their heart will feel. Veshav v'rafalo, and they will do teshuva, and Hashem will give them refuah. Now, the way Rabbi Yochanan is darshaning this is that even though that hachbet lev ha'amazeh ve'enav ve'oznav, all of that has happened, veshav v'rafalo. If he does teshuva at that moment, Hashem is going to tear apart the gezar din. That's how he's darshaning it, right? So Rabbi Yochanan has a beautiful, powerful pasuk from Yeshaya Navi that describes the process of teshuva. Right? So says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Papa Abaye. Rav Papa says to Abaye, who said that this is an indication that you could tear apart a gezar din? Listen to this. It's pashut that teshuva works. That we know already, right? The whole chidush of Rabbi Yochanan is not only teshuva works before the gezar din, it even works after the. Rav Papa says, who said that this is talking about? Where do you see gezar din in this pasuk? Maybe this is only talking about before gezar din. Maybe not after the gezar din is already cut for him and decided. But Dilma lifnei gezar din. Amar lo, says the Gemara, no, he answered him. Abaye answers. V'rafalo ketiv. The pasuk ends with v'shav v'rafalo. That he's got to do teshuva, and he's going to have refuah from his gezerah. Just turn off the thank you so much. Yeah. And you need refuah only when you're sick. Right? Refuah you don't need when you are preventative measures. Refuah is only when the sickness has already taken hold of the body. Right? It's not eat this not to get sick. If already the gezar din has not been paskin, so there's nothing there. It's like there bacteria and viruses in the air. Don't get sick, please. And that would be that. But if he says v'rafalo, means he's already sick. He already has taken effect. The gezerah is already done. That's what the Abaye answers. Says Gemara, what needs actual healing? That is a gezar din from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They asked in the Bet Midrash. Again, as we said, the Gemara is going to go through a few rounds of questioning, lines of questioning to this Rabbi Yochanan. Because obviously, this is $1 million line, like quite literally, this is an amazing, amazing line in the Gemara that regardless of what has happened, you can stand there and you could change it. The power of tefillah, the power of teshuva is in such a way that you could change anything and everything. That's worth. Unbelievable. The Gemara says, wait. How do you know? And now that you say V'shav v'rafano, I have questions on this. Because we have indications from different places that that's not true. Says the Gemara, they asked the Bet Midrash, Hashav bentayim mochalin lo. This is about our very old good Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur discussion. That Hashav bentayim, if a person does teshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, mochalin lo, lo shav. If he didn't do teshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which means beyom Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, ubeyom som hagipurim yechatemun, he already has been written and sealed. Now the gezar, that's AKA gezar din. And Yom Kippurim he got a gezar din. Guess what the Gemara says? Lo shav bentayim. If he didn't do tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, afilu hevi kol ele nevayot. Even if he brings the best of the korbanot in the world, en mochalin lo. There is no mechila to be had for him. So that means there's nothing doing. After Yom Kippur, you're finished. If the tshuva was not done timely, you can't just do tshuva after Yom Kippur. Right? Part of korban, obviously, is tshuva, right? Rambam writes in Chot Tshuva, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph and Bet, and Gimel, that even the korbanot of chatat, asham, olah that a person brings are not going to accomplish atonement without vidui, without proper tshuva. Korbanot obviously are there to do atonement, but it's with the process of teshuva. So even if you brought all the korbanot, which means even if you did all the korbanot plus all the teshuva, and mochalin lo, you can't change it. I mean, that's pretty explicit that the teshuva is not going to work after Yom Kippur, after the Gzar Din is already intact and in place. Says the Gemara, look, Hashem. There's another question. Ha beyachid, ha betzibur. This is the first explicit definition that the Gemara gives to differentiate between different types of teshuva. The Gemara is differentiating between teshuva shel yachid and teshuva of the tzibur, right? Says the Gemara, in other words, the teshuva of tzibur is much easier than a teshuva of yachid. If there has been a gezerah on the tzibur, they do teshuva any moment, mochalin lahem. You could change it. If you have a gezar din on a yachid, then afilu kol nevayot eles nevayot ba'olam en mochalin lo. Right? Now, we are obviously in our minds right away going back to the story that we started from of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, which was a yachid, apparently, right? So we have to come back to that. Says the Gemara, ha beyachid, ha betzibur. The Gemara says, they asked another question in the Bet Midrash. You're telling me that yachid can't, but tzibur can. This is speaking about the Hashgacha v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu over Eretz Yisrael. Eretz asher Hashem Elokecha doresh otah tamid. This is a land that Hashem, your God, is constantly revisiting. Hashem Hashem's eyes are on it from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. And says the Gemara, we learned about this pasuk, itim letova, itim lerah. Sometimes this providence of Hashem over Eretz Yisrael is for good, and sometimes the providence of Hashem over Eretz Yisrael is for bad. What does that mean? That means you have a gezerah of Rosh Hashanah. People in Eretz Yisrael did what they did, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked at them however He looked at them. There was a Rosh Hashanah, there was a Yom Kippur, there was a Yikatevun, there was a Yichatemun, and then you have the year start. Imagine the year was supposed to be a great year with Geshamim Be'itam, right? Rain and prosperity and money, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes a look during the 6 months in, and oy vavoy, Chas v'shalom, imagine, it's not good. What he sees is not good. And means there's a constant judgment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu over Eretz Yisrael. What is not true necessarily, that level of judgment, of day-to-day, constant judgment, it may not be true about other lands. Eretz Yisrael is the Paltin Shel Melech, is the palace of the king, and therefore there's constant scrutiny over the palace. So it says, the Gemara, itim letova means, ketzad. What does it mean? Sometimes it's for good. Imagine if Jews were considered in the balance sheet of the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, they were judged as Reshaim Gemurim. Not good, right? We already have explained that Reshaim Gemurim doesn't mean they have no mitzvot. It's the din of Reshaim Gemurim, says the Ramban, right? But imagine they were judged and passed for the Reshaim Gemurim. Their Gzar Din was written, their Gzar Din was sealed as wicked people on Rosh Hashanah. And therefore the decision was made in the heavenly court that they're not going to have any rain, or very little rain, if any. And then they do teshuva. They did a proper teshuva right after Yom Kippur. What's going to happen? Efshar, can't just change it. The Gezerah already has been passed in the Eretz Yisrael this year is going to have just a little rain. So what's Hashem do? Listen to this. Hashem is going to have in a specific GPS targeted rain. So the entirety of Eretz Yisrael is still going to get a little rain. But those places, the fields that need the lot of rain, all of a sudden it's going to be a little patch of cloud, and it's going to get a nice rain, and the rest of the land is still dry. So you have amazing crops with little rain. The overall rain per square inch of the land is going to be the same little thing that was Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but you'll have an amazing, blessed year of agriculture, right? That's because it's the judgment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on day-to-day base in Eretz Yisrael. So says the Gemara, Hakol lefi haaretz itim lera'ah, and sometimes it's chas v'shalom the other way around, that it was paskin for good and then it's going to change. Ketzat haaretz shayu Yisrael tzadikim gemurim b'Rosh Hashanah. Imagine the Jews in Eretz Yisrael were considered tzadikim gemurim on Rosh Hashanah, upasku alein geshamim merubim, and therefore Hashem judged and paskin and wrote and sealed that this is going to be a year of amazing abundance of rain and bracha, chazru bahen, and Jews, chas v'shalom, turned for the worse. Lifchot me'eni efshar, you can't take away from the amount of rain that Hashem paskined that's going to come. It's going to still have a lot of rain that year. Shekevar nigzara gezerah, already was, the gezerah was done. You can't change the gezerah on the tzibur. See this? We're talking about tzibur over here. You're talking about the entirety of the Jewish assembly in Eretz Yisrael. You can't change the gezerah. So what does Hashem do? You know what Hashem does? Hashem brings a lot of rain before the season of plantation. Then it just messes with the oxygen and nitrogen of the dirt. Now you can't even plant properly. And then when he really needs it the most, when you plant it, there's nothing. And then after the season of the growth passes, it starts pouring again. So you got the sum total of a lot of rain, but not a drop when you needed it. So it will be a horrible agricultural year, but you got all the rain. So Hashem didn't change the gezerah, but changed the outcome outsmarted his own system, right? He's the only one that could outsmart his own system. So says the Gemara, and you know when the rain is going to pour? It's going to pour on the offices and on the everywhere besides the fields, right? It's not going to be timely, and it's not going to be in proper locations. So says the Gemara, Letova miha likare legazar dinehu. Velosiv lehu. Shaniatam, the Gemara asks basically, why can't you just tear the gezar din for good? I mean, you don't want to tear the gezar din. L'ra'a, I understand. Akash Baruch Hu, once he passes something good, he doesn't take it away. But you want to tear the gezar din letova, make it better. Why can't you do that? The Gemara says, Shani hatam de'efshar b'ach. He says that Hashem would turn the gezar din over and tear it apart for better. But here he doesn't have to even tear it away. Here Hashem could keep the gezar din and still give you a good year of agriculture by pointed, directed rain in the places that need it. So he doesn't have to change the gezar din and still could give you an amazing year of agriculture and bracha. So says the Gemara. Now this is obviously one kasha the Gemara brought and needs to be dealt with. I didn't realize we're out of time. But Gemara is going to have now a proof that Gemara tries to bring to decide whether or not a gezar din of tzibur could be changed or can't be changed. And the Gemara is going to, as we mentioned before, differentiate between a gezar din that has been with a shvuah, with an oath, versus a gezar din that didn't have an oath accompanying it. That means sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so confident, so to speak, it's such a strong decision that Hashem says, I'll swear I'll do this, right? Obviously, this is for us to understand. It just means it's a different league, a different plane of existence of a decision from the heavenly court than a regular decision, which we're going to actually examine, go through examples of it, and see what that means for a regular day-to-day life of people, and whether or not that means that on Yom Kippurim, on Rosh Hashanah, there are certain things that we can't necessarily change. If you remember, again, this is something else that we're going to come back to as well, when we spoke about a few months ago, around Tisha B'Av, we spoke about the Midrash of Asara Arugei Malchut, and the first thing that we discussed there, and we mentioned that in Amud Yomi, we're going to come back to it, is the fact that when the announcement was made from the king, from the Kesar, to the Jewish community, to the 10 martyrs, so to speak, they said, give us 3 days to get back with you. And they, in those 3 days, they wanted to verify if this was a gezar din from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in a way that they should not daven for it and fight it back, or they should fight it back, right? And Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol was the one that did what he did and came back with the devastating answer that they should just accept this. This is not going to change, right? So that's together as, let's call it a more tzibur versus Chizkiyahu HaMelech, more as a yachid, would indicate opposite of what we just mentioned right now. That the tzibur was not changeable, so to speak, and the yachid by Chizkiyahu HaMelech was changeable after the gezar din, which is something that now we have to put back together and try to resolve. Chazak u'Baruch.